What exactly would I tell my 20-year-old self? I mean, I almost flunked out of college, I got laid off from my dream job in my early 20s, and I flirted with bankruptcy just a few years later.
Yeah, well, I lost my job too.
You are one pathetic loser.
So, yeah, if I had the chance, I'm pretty sure I'd have a lot to say to that 20-year-old boy. In fact, probably too much to put into a video, so I'll only touch on a few topics here as they pertain to business, career, entrepreneurship, and finances. And what's in it for you? Well, a few things hopefully. You can learn from my mistakes for one, because lessons from failure equals wisdom. One thing I didn't know on my way out of college, besides everything, was that I'd be starting my own business a heck of a lot sooner than I could have imagined, and not exactly by choice. It's a crazy story that I'll explain. And I should just call this part one, because I know as soon as I finish this, I'm sure I'm going to think of more. But without further ado, let's have this little conversation. Yeah, you heard me. I nearly flunked out of college, Baylor University. There were actually several reasons why, but most importantly, I wasn't taking it nearly as seriously as I should have. I coasted through high school with academic excellence without lifting a finger. Baylor, on the other hand, was like, you ain't coasting anywhere around here unless you're coasting out of town. That was tough. I'd love to go back and tell 20-year-old me to recognize the opportunity at hand. Pay attention, show up to class, do the work, study the material. In fact, I should elaborate or expand on that concept to recognize opportunity, period. There are opportunities all around us, and I think the pace of life that we keep has us in blinders like the kind racehorses wear. We can see, but only real well at what's immediately in front of us. I think all of us need to be a little bit more aware of the opportunity around us, because so often we're in the middle of an incredible opportunity, one maybe not afforded to everyone else, and somehow it doesn't even register. As for Baylor, my first year there just wasn't anything that I did right. So I landed myself on academic probation, and the good folks at BU said, you can bring that GPA up to 3.0 next semester or you're out of here. Look, that one mistake almost busted me up pretty badly, but somehow, by some miracle, I was able to get my crap together and make a comeback and eventually graduate. Now, I'm not saying this is true for everyone, but sometimes your first job out in the real world is really only there to help you find your second job. At the ripe age of 22, I went to work for KPMG. Now, KPMG is a great company, but where I was assigned, it just wasn't for me. I lasted about 9 months before moving on to work for company number 2, which was a much better fit. But when I finally had enough around that 9-month mark, I called my boss and I told him that I'd be turning in my 2 weeks notice, and that it truly was a it's not you, it's me kind of breakup.
It's not you, it's me.
You're giving me the it's not you, it's me routine? I invented it's not you, it's me.
And what he told me then, now 23 years old, became a major turning point, one that I would look back on and remember and question 1,000,000 times over in the years to come. This is what he told me. He said, hey, I know you don't like the projects you're on right now and the people on your immediate team aren't your favorite, but I'm asking you to stay with me. If you can weather this storm and stick with me, I'll get you $1 million salary in 10 years. Now, $1 million salary by age 33 sounds like a great time and fun for the whole family, but somehow it just didn't matter because I didn't enjoy my day-to-day work at all. There was just zero passion and fulfillment happening. So early on, I made the decision, money or not, I'm going to enjoy what I do. I would go on to question that decision at least 100 times in the years to come, like every time the road got rough. But I went ahead and I moved on to company number 2, and for a 50% raise, I might add. That certainly made the transition more exciting. I was going to get to do exactly what I wanted to do, which was build websites for a lot more money. A true win-win. But sometimes, if it sounds too good to be true, it might just be. I should mention that this was at the height of the dot-com boom. Web developers like myself were being overpaid and underworked like it was economic policy signed into law. I was given stock options in the new company, and by the time I finished my initial 2 weeks training in San Francisco, my stock was already worth 100 grand.
What'd you just say?
Now, to a 23-year-old that's been working at a company for a hot 10 minutes, 100 grand in future money, because they were stock options that vest over time, was pretty insane. So I'd like to whisper in 23-year-old me's ear and say, hey, what's happening around you? This new life, job, paycheck, limo transportation, and steak dinners, everyone making crazy money and laughing all the way to the bank, it's completely unsustainable. So be ready when it crumbles. And crumble it did. My stock options went to zero. You can read all about the dot-com bubble bust. It was quite an event, and I was right in the middle of it. It came crumbling down in epic fanfare. Most internet consulting firms went bust right there on the spot, and those that didn't downsized heavily. So I got laid off at age 24, just 1 year after my dream job started. Now, if I could rewind or hop in the DeLorean and go back in time, there's a lot that I'd tell 24-year-old me because this transition was rough. Now, technically, I chose to be laid off. The company was downsizing, being gutted, and they told me that I could either move to San Francisco or take the layoff package. I chose the latter. I was already traveling to San Francisco all the time, and moving there was like, how about new? It's a beautiful place. Well, it used to be a beautiful place. Now it's dirty and disgusting. I was literally just there a few months ago. The place is going to hell in a handbasket, and they need to do something about it. But the reality was, even if I moved there, I was going to be laid off in the months to come. Anyway, here's what I would tell myself about being laid off. Don't panic. Greener pastures are ahead should you decide to work the field. A layoff is an involuntary transition. It's not the end. It's simply rounding a corner towards the next destination. It's inconvenient and it's a little embarrassing, sure, but it's a this too shall pass situation. See, if I wasn't laid off, I wouldn't have started my own business. And if I hadn't started my own business, I wouldn't be where I am now. I'd probably still be working 9 to 5 somewhere, traveling for work and making great money, no doubt. But the idea of retiring in my late 30s from selling my own company, well, that would be impossible.
What?
So when my world was crumbling all around me, it was actually the start of something truly amazing. It just didn't look or feel amazing at the time, and for about another 6 to 7 years. In fact, there were some tough years in there. To date, some of the toughest I've ever faced. I won't bore you with the details, but let me just say this. If all you see now is planes, Porsches, and exotic vacations, you're missing the journey of blood, sweat, and tears and a long list of sacrifices that probably only a handful of people actually witnessed. Besides, that's all the stuff that doesn't actually matter in life. You don't need a plane or a Porsche to be happy. You need a Ferrari.
Oh!
I'm kidding. None of that crap will move the needle on real happiness, joy, contentment, or fulfillment. No amount of stuff can do that, period. I'd like to tell my 20-year-old self that too, at least if just to get expectations in line with reality. In fact, there's a story of a tech billionaire. I think it's the dude that created Minecraft. I can't remember honestly, because there are so many stories and they're all literally the same. Anyway, he sold his company for like $1 zillion or whatever, bought a $60 million home in LA with a $60 million view, got the cars and the boats to go with it, threw big lavish parties with bands, famous DJs, and celebrities, and he was quite miserable. And I could tell you 36 more stories just like that one. Why the world insists on selling this particular image of what success and the fulfillment of life is beyond comprehension. It's a lie, and it's ridiculous. Really. This is what success is. This. Relationships. Real relationships. In fact, the last picture was taken in Florida, and if you know me, you know that is probably one of my least favorite vacation spots on earth. But it's not about where you are and what you have, it's who you're with. I can't get into that now, that's a whole nother video. Now, I didn't launch into entrepreneurship on purpose. That's really true. When I was laid off, there were thousands of web developers like me on the sidelines looking for a job, and there just weren't enough jobs to go around. Truly, demand took a whack to the knees, and the supply of the talent overwhelmingly exceeded the demand. So what was I to do?
We got no food, we got no jobs, our pets' heads are falling off!
Well, if I was going to make any money whatsoever, I was going to be doing it on my own. It was the only option. There were no grand plans to leave the corporate world and build my own business. So I'd love to tell 20-year-old me to keep an open mind because you might wind up doing something that is completely off radar. If I look back at some of the random jobs I did for people to get my feet back on the ground, it's hilarious. I made some good side money playing guitar. I designed some logos, building signs, billboards. A well-known public speaker paid me to design his presentation slides. I was paid to doctor up a magazine article as a prank by replacing a lawyer in the photo with Pamela Anderson. To say there was a season of odd jobs would be grossly understating the situation. I was involved at a great church at the time and that drew its congregation right from the heart of DFW area like Grapevine and Southlake. Truly a very entrepreneurial area. Plenty of startups. Plenty of rich people with expensive ideas, and they all needed complicated websites or web-based software. So gaining clients actually became quite easy. In fact, I soon convinced myself that I was really amazing at sales because no one ever told me no. I always got the sale, with a check on the table and a how soon can we get started. But you know why I always closed every deal like a sales boss? Well, it's because I was cheap. So cheap, it might as well have been free. And don't miss this because this is a critically important lesson. I based my pricing off what it cost me. I had some great roommates and we lived in a rent house and our cost of living was hysterically cheap. I physically remember thinking one day, you know, at $30 an hour, I only have to work like 2 hours a day to pay all my bills and have some play money. Oh, how ignorant that thought process was. I was basing my prices off costs. Folks, don't do this. That's what rookies do. It costs me this or it takes me this much time, therefore I charge X. No, no, no. You price things off what the market will bear, not for what it costs you. Yes, you need to know your cost, but that's so you can know where the floor is. But your cost has nothing to do with where the ceiling is. For years, I was doing great work for pennies when I could have made some serious coin, but I was inexperienced and ignorant. I left so much money on the table that it's just laughable, which is all I can do now is laugh at it. I'd love to go back and tell 24 to 26-year-old me, hey man, triple your prices, you certified numbnuts. Increase your prices until you hear no. And then, when you actually hear no, you say, well, what do you think is fair? And you negotiate. Running around selling $50,000 worth of work for $5,000 is what morons do. It's what I did. Don't fall victim to basing prices off cost. As for a growing business, I'd have a few things to tell my 25-year-old self, like this. Think about scalability sooner. At first, make money. Yes, you need sales to survive. Make money. You have to. But if what you're doing and how you're doing it isn't scalable, then it's time to focus on a modified agenda. Billing hours to provide a service is fine. But in a service-related business, you can bill hours all the way to the grave, or you can sell and close deals all the way to the grave, which means when you go on vacation, you're not making money. Or basically anytime you're not physically working, you're not making money. Eventually, and sooner than you think, you need to get things structured so you're still making money as you ride up that ski lift in Beaver Creek, or as you swim out to that snorkel spot in Hawaii, or the Cayman Islands. But you need to think about how you can move towards a scalable future that stops the one-to-one linear relationship between work and income. Eventually, and the sooner the better, you need to make money while you're not working. That could be hiring, it could be adding a resellable product to your mix, selling product that you don't actually have to manufacture, rental property. There are a million ways to blend in some scalability, so I would start thinking about that now if you aren't. Honestly, there's a lot more I'd tell my 20-year-old self, a lot in the areas of general life, relationships, and non-business types of things. I might just have to do another video that widens the scope on this topic. But for now, I hope these lessons I mentioned earlier help you in some way. What would you tell your younger self? And how about you share that in the comments below? I'm pretty sure there's something that all of us can learn from you. And if you got value out of this, punch like, subscribe, and ring that bell for me. Thanks for watching, y'all.